Hello, everyone. Today I am joined by our community manager, Lauren Urban, and we're talking about, surprise, Idle Champions, but also how Idle Champions can be an inspiration for our D&D games as well. Lauren, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I got a whole party of awesome people going here, and I'm having fun.
Perfect. And so, yeah, what is your? I see Averins. I see a lot of Averins.
Well, yes, that's what you do. Is there's a lot of you. Yeah, so I'm currently running just some Celise free plays just to get chests because she's one of the champions and I need to grind out chests. So I am missing Penelope out of my usual Heroes of the Plains formation. Sorry, Penelope. I would normally have her in one of my other parties, but for today, because we're focusing, I'm focusing my efforts this week on Celise, so she gets to join the Heroes of the Plains as we defeat dragons. Apparently, there you go. Hey, look,
that was quick.
It's us. It's us on Idle Insights right now. We should check ourselves out. That won't break reality. Here, I'll close that.
No. I'm gonna watch myself. Wow, watch myself.
Hey, listen, right? Like this Inception show would get very, very interesting. But yeah, we're talking about how you can use playing the game to give you inspiration for playing D&D, whether as a player or a DM. Because you know what? When you're playing a D&D game, a video game, why wouldn't it help inspire you for playing D&D in real life? Whether you're going to create a character or whether you're going to DM. And I'll start right away as a DM. I really appreciate playing Idle Champions because I often don't get a chance to play a lot of the published adventures, because most of the time when I'm DMing something homebrew or I'm altering things. And so by the time the books have come out, especially the published adventures, I don't get a chance to play through them. They've been spoiled, or I'm pulling bits and pieces from them for my own adventure. So being able to play through Icewind Dale or play through Descent into Avernus or play through Curse of Strahd. Honestly, a lot of these I've played more through Idle Champions than I have tabletop because I haven't gotten a chance to DM them or play them myself.
Yeah, that's valid. You do kind of want to go on that adventure, right? Like, I've never been able to play in Icewind Dale, sadly, but I do want that experience. And I am frequently the dungeon master, so I don't necessarily get that experience in the same way that players would necessarily. But yeah, so Idle Champions is very, very nice in that fashion. I'm actually working on something for DM's Guild where I so like the effect, and I was very happy for Chris Dupuis' patience. But the ultimate of having everyone shrink and Aaron become very big is too funny not to make it a spell in real life. I don't even care if it's a very effective spell, but it's funny to me. So I want to make it for DM's Guild.
If it's funny, I would argue it's effective.
Exactly. Like,
that's really effective is very subjective, and I think funny is effective.
Yeah, and I've definitely gotten inspiration from other things. Just playing the game is like very relaxing, and then you're like, oh, I really should include that monster, like the Neolithid keeps on popping up, and I have certainly used Neolithids before, but for some reason I don't quite realize how absolutely horrifying they are until I see them like show up on the screen and like grab a mind flare.
Yeah.
And suck them up. I think that's the best way to tell you this monster is terrible. Because when a monster eats a mind flare, you need to come correct like right away.
That's when your champions need to turn around and go nope.
That's when you hit the back button.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. So and yeah, that's another thing. Like a lot of these monsters, some of them I know, most of them I know, but being able to see them in action is always interesting, or see some of the stuff that they do, or just seeing how ridiculously large they are. Like I run a lot of theater of the mind, and so when like the dragon shows up from Icewind Dale, when the big dragon shows up, and there's something about, it's like when the WizKid miniature shows up.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, this is not a mini. No, this is huge.
Yeah, it is very much like that miniature effect of, and I found this like sometimes we workshop character ideas, Megan and I, and we'll use miniatures to do it. And it gives us a very kind of a concept of like spell effects and how they can actually be used, because in theater minds, some things are definitely lost. But yeah, you put a big miniature there and you're like, oh, that's how big that is. That's how much space it's taking up. This is how afraid I am going to feel seeing that. Because you say dragon in my mind, and I've seen dragons in my mind 100 times. It's never as scary, though, when you see it in Idle Champions.
Yeah, when Tiamat shows up.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is so much bigger than me. Like, this is like really upsetting. But in my head, like, yeah, I see it to scale, but there is something visceral and alarming when you see it visually on Idle Champions that you know you're in trouble.
And it helps for those of us who play Theater of the Mind, because I think when you do play with maps and minis and everything, that can help your immersion with having at least 2 scale representations. But for those of us who don't use that can sometimes get lost. So seeing it in the game, having the 5 heads of Tiamat, not all 5 of them because there's not enough room, come out from the side of the screen, and having a moment to go, oh, that's, yeah, okay, that's a lot. That can help me as a DM with that moment when I'm trying to describe it to my players. I now have the Idle Champions mental image in my head.
We do have
we're getting
questions.
A lot of
So we do have a code that's weird. I made the code. This is on Talk Henrik. This is my fault. It says Idle Goes Film. Full disclosure.
This actually isn't your fault. This is kind of my fault too.
This is full disclosure. I thought maybe Lauren wasn't going to make it today, and I had someone else in line. And films were maybe going to be discussed. I will let you know that there are no current plans. I hope this isn't a spoiler, to make an Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms film as of yet. That doesn't mean that maybe it won't happen.
But no, the code is not giving anything away, except that originally I was going to be on the show and this is what we were going to talk about. And I'll just say it, I woke up and I was kind of feeling icky this morning, and it took a couple of extra hours for me to not be feeling sick. Yay for water and ibuprofen. And so Todd was pivoting last minute and was going to be talking about film stuff. We're not going to be talking about film stuff because I will not be able to contribute to that conversation, because I don't know why you're friends with me. I don't watch movies. Like, Luke should
so
come
weird.
on. You can have Luke on, and you can have Dylan on, and the 3 of you can talk about movies. I am just not that person.
Whereas,
I like movies, but I'm just not the connoisseur.
Yeah, I'll watch a movie 800 times, even if I don't like it.
Oh, Dylan, talk about movies, you cowards. I mean, we can talk about movies.
Talk about movies, you cowards. What is the last movie you saw?
Oh, jeez.
See, that's
That's
don't even know how you can function.
That is an unfair question during these trying times. But because now I'm like, what have I seen recently that would be considered a movie? Is the Bill Burnham special considered a movie?
Yeah, I think so. I've actually not watched it because I think I will find it upsetting, and I've already lived through it.
I found it upsetting, and I lived through. Yeah.
Megan said it was upsetting as well because it's just too close to home, and I'm full on. I want out of the pandemic mentality right now. I don't want to review the events of the last year.
It was. I will say it was a little cathartic.
Right, I'm sure it was. Yeah.
Like, so Luke was watching it, and I came in and kind of sat down on the couch and was doing other things, and then ended up watching it. It's really good, and he's really talented. And we got to the end of it, and Luke's response as an artist was, oh, that was interesting. He's more of a fan of Bill. Right. It was like, oh, these songs are interesting. He's been listening to some of the songs. And my response, especially the week before I was finally able to go play my first gig in 15 months, was to cry and sob like a baby.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, especially with him being he's a live performer, but he was doing all of his performance through music. So that hit a little too close to home. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a good thing. Like, I am that person who believes that if any source of art media can affect you in any way, especially emotionally, then it's good, even if it wasn't good, if that makes any sense. So I have a lot of respect for it, but oh yeah, I was a crying, sobbing mess afterwards. There you go. We've talked about movies.
Well,
thanks, Dylan.
You have seen the first episode of Loki. correct.
Kinda.
You've kind of seen it.
So okay,
You hurt me
talk.
inside.
Listen, why are we friends? I don't know. Why are you friends with me? I have not been watching Loki, and I will. So there's several good reasons and one bad reason. The good reasons are, hey, I happen to be playing in a game with you as a dungeon master, in where Loki and North mythology and a lot of that stuff has been brought up a lot, and so I'm like, I don't want to be in the position in where I'm watching a TV show based on a character that is probably drawing from the same mythology.
Mm.
Also, I'm just not a fan of Loki as a character. There, I said it.
All right, we're shutting the stream down.
I said it. It's not my. I am not a fan of characters you love to hate.
Well, that's interesting. So I would definitely recommend the first episode to you.
Mm-hmm.
For reasons.
I'm also not a fan of time travel, and I know that they're like it's multiple.
There's big Lauren words. I don't even know who asked it.
I know.
So I will say this: you and I recently had a conversation about Averin as I play him.
Yes.
And verbatim, that conversation is had.
In the show. You told me about this.
In the show, it's literally you and I as Todd and Lauren talking about my character, and they have that moment in the first episode, and it's hilarious because I've been having this conversation with my wife as well, and she's just like, are you like writing on this, or like and I can get like a lot of DMs because it's literally the conversation, like beat for beat. It's so weird. It's yeah. So it's fun.
I don't have to watch Loki because
That's
apparently
right.
I wrote it.
You've lived it. Or you wrote it. So
yeah.
That's.
But yeah, I am also not a fan of time travel. And while I have a lot of respect for Infinity War, how they managed to be like, this isn't time travel, this is alternate universes.
Yeah.
And so you're not actually moving through time. This is a different universe. And I was able to deal with that because I have issues with time travel. But Loki, like, I have a feeling that line is going to get blurred, and I'm just going to be unreasonably upset. So you know what? I'm not ruining anyone else's fun. You enjoy Loki. Luke is enjoying Loki, and I'm enjoying him telling me about the show after he watches it.
I think it's very dangerous in the fact that it can invalidate things.
Well, we gotta be careful about spoilers at this point.
No, I'm not going into that. I think in time travel in general, I think is very fun, and especially for if you're an actor, because this is not a spoiler, but like to rewind your character back to another moment in time is interesting, and it's hard work, especially when you have this idea of who your character is, and then you have to act like your character was like 2 years ago or 10 years ago. That's a very interesting actory thing to have to go through and to experiment with. But I think time travel can invalidate decisions. It can...
there are whole episodes of Star Trek I'm very pissed off about because they essentially did not happen.
Yeah, and I don't particularly care for that kind of thing, or even things that happen to be illusions, like it was a dream all along. I don't like that. I think it's sloppy storytelling. The one I will say, the one time that I don't feel that way is Star Trek Picard. Picard in Star Trek Next Generation, living an entire life in a simulation, could have felt like a really not impressive episode until you see the dramatic effect of him having gone through that. That makes it work.
Yeah, and that's why I'm usually okay with the it was all a dream, but not with the time travel stuff, because what happens with time travel is all of for me, when I'm watching a movie, a TV show, when I'm playing D&D, we'll bring it back to D&D somehow. We'll bring it back to the game shortly. I'm all about the character interaction, and when you erase moments in a character's history, that interaction goes away and that growth goes away, and I hate that. But at least it was all a dream. Was it real? It was still real in a way, like that Picard episode. He still experienced all of that, even if it was, and so it still affected him, and he still had an emotional journey, and he remembers all of that. So I enjoy that because it's not that it didn't happen. It happened, and we get to see the outcomes of it. And that's why time travel annoys me, because usually what happens is that then, like you said, it invalidates stuff from happening.
I think you have to, if you're ever going to do that in D&D, you almost, unless the character specifically wants to reset, as I have, you you have to remember everything anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You as a dungeon master or a storyteller, I would never be like, no, you are yourself X amount of years ago. We had a reset in our game where someone wished that they were back to the beginning. I'm like, no, you remember everything.
Well, we had that discussion of like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just like, well, geez, like we've had years of character development. Like, no, you're back at a different point in time, but you have all the memories.
Yeah.
And now you can, like, some things maybe will happen differently, or you've avoided things, but we're not going to go into the weeds on all that. We're not going to like relive our best hits because, no one wants to fight Ceranthus again for the second time.
No.
Also,
or the
there's a character you love to hate. Like, it's just a hateful character. Like,
yeah.
You can only expose yourself to that kind of monstrosity so many times.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense.
And there we go. We have talked about film, and now the code makes sense.
Now the code makes sense. Congratulations. we planned all of this, and we were goaded by Dylan. Does Avern have a Loki cosplay? I think that's a good idea for a skin, but of Loki in Norse mythology, not Loki for Marvel because of certain rights issues. Though I would actually
also would make more sense for Loki in Norse mythology for Avern because Avern doesn't know the Marvel movies. So
and Avern's modus operandi is very different than Loki. Loki wants to be king of the world. I will say both would not be good at being king of the world, but neither, like, but Avern doesn't necessarily want that. He owns a club, but that's about as far as his ambitions have gone, other than some, PTSD issues, which we've already explored on Heroes of the Plains.
Yeah.
Which I did like. I liked that. I always liked that plot, though I did grab it from Millennium the movie, which is just the worst. But watch that trailer on YouTube. Millennium the movie, 1989. Holy crap! Great ideas. Weird. One of the weirdest movies. It's up there with Highlander 2 in weirdness. I'm just gonna
Bad
say.
execution. But I will say we'll bring this back around to the original.
We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back. So the original thing that we're going to talk about is taking inspiration from playing the game into your D&D game, and that's just a general thing for D&D, especially as a DM, taking inspiration from everything. If you're playing the game and you see a monster or a character or a situation, you're like, okay, that's cool, I can make that work. I want to make that work in my D&D game. Or watching a movie or reading a book or a TV show, any of that, and being able to take bits and pieces of that or wholesale dropping it into your adventure. I mean, it's a D&D game, especially if it's not a streamed one. Who cares? You pull plots from places, because then if your players figure it out, if they don't, great, they think you're brilliant. If they do, then they get to be brilliant for figuring it out. Like, it's a kind of a win-win.
Like just watching the game even right now, I am reminded that and I'll completely admit to this. I kind of hate familiars. Familiars.
Look at Pirate Griff right here. Pirate Griff is so cute.
But the thing is, I love familiars in Idle Champions. But like the thing with familiars in D&D is you're always doing the help action because that's what you do. Help action, help action, help action, help action, and it's just kind of like a constant like. It's said so much. There's certain things that are repeated so many times that it's just like, let's just have everyone have the help action like nonstop all the time.
Can I, as a DM, offer you suggestions for when that happens?
You may.
Okay, because I have a wizard in my game with a familiar who does not do the help action very often, because what you have to remember about the help action, especially to make it useful in combat situations, unlike the familiars and Idle Champions, the familiars in the game need to be within 5 feet of the creature that you're trying to help someone else hit, because that's usually what it is like, all right, my tank is going to go in there, whack somebody. The familiar needs to be within 5 feet.
Doesn't mean they can't be targeted and be killed right away.
Well,
the familiar itself,
I mean, they can be. They have like 5 hit points. Yeah. And it's not that big of a deal because it's a familiar who can be semi-easily resummoned. It's not like killing a character or anything.
Yeah, no.
So
no.
I think it's totally worth, and I don't do it very often because then it just turns into kind of a ridiculous thing. But it does mean it gives my wizard player who has a familiar impetus to do other things. And I kind of like how they're smart with that. Oftentimes, their owl is flying overhead as Overwatch. Let's make sure that nothing is coming up to startle us.
And it's been a good narrative hook.
Mm-hmm.
I will say when it pertains to Griff, like Griff will see things ahead of time, and it can move the plot along. This is not me attacking Griff in other games, and
I mean he will judge you.
Yes, and there certainly is the Pact of the Familiar, and then it can actually be have more of a combat role. And I've liked familiar characters before. I never do it because unfortunately I named Averin when I was 8 years old, and not with the impetus to have him very associated with ravens. I know, shocker. I was actually associating it with revenants. And I misstepped apparently as a 8-year-old child.
As an 8-year-old, geez, come on.
But everyone thinks, oh, it's about ravens. I'm like, I mean, I love ravens. Corvids are like the third smartest creature on the planet or something.
They're up there. I don't know what the ranking is, but yeah.
They use tools. It's really upsetting. They'll steal keys. I know in Germany there's a type of Corvid that will straight up take the keys out of your car. But yeah, so I love the familiars in Idle Champions, and I love the designs, and I think it's a very good example of how to flavor your familiars, because oh my god, they're so adorable. And when I started playing Idle Champions, I feel like there was only like 8, and now there are so many familiars, and they're so cute and adorable, and like, Penelope Halfpint, played by Hope Lavelle, has a friend who is a Chewinga. And I love Chewingas. I love, my wife Megan played a character named Luthien who actually had a Gazer familiar, and that was hilarious because it would like be inside a tankard of like beer and pop out or eat rats. It was just really gross and disgusting as I imagine Gazers would be. Yeah. But we have a toad with a witch hat. Like I want all these as plushies.
Wordsworth.
Yeah, I want all of these as plushies. The pink beholder.
Yep.
It's just too much. The little baby owl bear.
And I mean,
baby Spurt. Great. Holy crap! Like it's just too much. And
there's baby Spurt.
It's a good like. I would like a general stat for familiars where you can make it anything. In D&D, actually, given the variety that we see here, I just want like the familiar stat, like the flying familiar, the swimming familiar, and like the standard like maybe tankier familiar, and then you can just say what it is, and I think that would be more fun, because otherwise it's all owls all the time because they can disengage as they sweep by, and there's no reason never to do an owl. Like, I mean, crows and ravens can do the whole like mimicking someone's speech thing, and I've done that. I straight up have, but I mean, not me as a person. I mean, in game. But anyways, so
and I do like the idea of like using the familiars in the game to come up at least with reskinning opportunities of like, I've got a familiar. I'll use the stats of the owl, but I'll go ahead and use an abyssal chicken because why not?
Exactly. Like I think there's, and then we are kind of seeing this in design in general for D&D, where we've seen like you summon a creature and it's got general stats. I would love like to see a lot of UA in Idle Champions. I hope a lot does, but like the Draken Warden Ranger, I'm like, oh, pet dragon.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who just want to see more dragon stuff. I mean, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Come on.
Yeah, it is a key component.
It's half the battle.
Yeah, but so Idle Champions helps a lot. There, I got big again. That will never not make me laugh. I bless you, Chris Dupuy, for all that you put up with. But I will say that is an amazing character. Not just because it's me big on the screen. I hope people know that I am not this character, though. That's my concern sometimes.
I think that's a concern for all of us. I mean, I understand why it's more of a concern for you, considering how Averin is not necessarily always a good person. Yeah. But even at playing a good person, it can be overwhelming sometimes because Orkira is a better person than I am. And that's a lot to live up to.
I mean... Yeah, Orkira is very strict, like rules of good and evil.
No, I would say she's
Well-
not strict with good and evil. She has her own code, and she's definitely, I mean, she's not lawful. And she is
Almost good to a
vindictive.
fault. Like she will sacrifice herself, and like
she
your
will,
sense of
but
preservation is not 100%. I would say. on Orkira.
no, definitely not. But she believes her job is to protect others, and if you know, but she also is not one of those who is like going to spare the life of someone who has done wrong. You know, especially if someone has come after her or her friends.
Mhm.
Like she is very willing to be like, well, now you have to die because you're endangering innocent lives or friends and family, and thus, you know. So it's not that she is like goody two shoes or anything, but she is definitely a good person and better than me.
That was one of my favorite character moments ever I had with you, because we had not, I don't know that we both had characters that had backstories or future stories that had not been explored as of yet. And it was very funny and tense because I didn't realize how much, like, most clerics are not fans of undead.
Mm-hmm.
Orkira really does not like undead.
Yeah.
Averin knew very much, like, has zero problem with undead, except for evil ones, but was very aware of non-evil ones, and also knew eventually he would become a non-evil one. So to have this awkward conversation without like dropping the what's going to happen later was amazing role play, because Orkira is very upset, and Averin's like. And it's the opposite conversation we've ever had. I'm like, no, don't kill this thing, which Averin never says. And you're like, go kill this thing, which Orkira rarely says. It was like, okay, things have gotten a little weird here. We are now through the looking glass a bit on what we are defending and not defending. And that was a fun moment.
Well, and she has a very particular reason why she hates undead, and it actually has zero to do with a lot of the reason that most characters hate undead. So, you know, when she's explained that about how once you're undead, you can't come back to life. I can't revivify you. I can't resurrect you.
Right.
You know, it takes it's something that can be used to stop me from helping people. You know, that's why she hates Finger of Death. So it's not so undead aren't evil to her. It's not an evil or a bad thing. Undead are sad. You know, she feels bad, and she tries to destroy them because she doesn't want people to be inspired by them. She doesn't want, you know, destroying the actual body is one of the few ways that she can hope to give that person a chance at coming back. So,
and liches are a weird not caveat, but liches are a weird edge case in the fact that they do have a soul, and it is in a phylactery, and the good specific liches, some of them have their souls inside of them, so they don't actually function in the exact same way. Because typically in D&D, the idea is that the soul gets kind of burned away to create that thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why skeletons are really dark and stuff like that. And that's why Dance Macabre exists, because they are undead. You did make them pop up, but you didn't burn their souls away to make them attack, right? Like they are not naturally evil. They have the stat block, but they're not evil by nature, and they're not going to roam around and start killing things. They're only going to be up for a little bit. I also like Create Undead. I mean, the Summon Undead ability as well, because I think it's funny to like summon the same undead over and over again that you're friends with, or summon demons that you've known in a very Constantine way, but at least they disappear and you're not creating one. And so I mean, we as characters also had the same thing of like, I summoned a bunch of demon children.
Yeah, or I still don't think Orkira knows that happened.
Yeah, Freely and Averin though, like,
yeah,
definitely has some tension.
But more questions.
We got an unusual amount of questions. No, Lauren Urban, to my knowledge, is not a screenwriter.
I am not. No, that was 100% a joke.
Does Minnie Mouse imply the existence of Massive Mouse? I feel like yes. I'm just terrified of Massive Mouse.
That would be actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, we can't stream copyright content, but I do think that would be very fun and hilarious to talk about.
Also, now I just kind of want to stat out a massive mouse, a giant mouse, a gargantuan mouse. Not a rat, because I think rats can be inherently scary, but mice are cuter. And so a Tarrasque-sized mouse. I got to talk to Dupuy. Maybe we can get that into the game.
I do like the idea of a Trask-sized mouse.
He's going to hate us after this show. After the show, we're going to be like,
we should have an hour
12
called
different ideas.
Let's pitch Dupuy, but Dupuy's not in the room.
That'll be next week. What do we want to pitch for
So this
for
is what
week?
we said to the community on a live stream that you're going to do.
Yes, and suddenly I don't have a job anymore. Okay.
Oh, that's
what
weird.
else?
It's called Breaking Dupuy. That's the new show idea that I'm putting out there.
And then he gets to go on Developer Insights when Developer Insights. So there's no Developer Insights this week because there's a couple people who are off enjoying good vacation and also they're busy. And so when they're back, they'll have to have Dupuy on who could be no.
That will be fantastic. I'm
While
very
you-
much here for it. And we'll
while
have
you look at-
caveat. We'll have a segment called Avern Adjustments.
Avern notes.
Avern notes. Let's change this now.
Let's change it. Yeah, that's okay. While you look over the questions, I'll go ahead and welcome all the new people that are coming in from the game because we got a bunch of new people. So welcome. We are talking specifically about how you can play Idle Champions and be inspired by Idle Champions in your D&D game, whether it's you've seen characters or monsters or events or anything in the game that can help you out as either a player or a DM. And then we also talked about movies and other random things. If you're here for the chess code, it's over. I'm going to hopefully point in the right direction. We'll see.
Yes, you are.
Yay!
I mean, I may be the chess code, depending on how you're rationalizing. What's funny is I'm looking at the questions, and it looks like I'm looking at you. So this is very important eyeline live stream etiquette. Look, we're looking at you.
Yay!
Wait,
but yeah, chess code's over there, and that's why it says Idle Goes Film is because hey, we talked about films. That's why.
High five me.
Don't. Yeah, okay. It's only taken us being on the internet for how many years before we did that joke? So yes,
terrible.
welcome. Pick up your chess code, hang out. We're answering questions about things in the game that you think could be used for your home D&D game, and also just talking about movies apparently and Loki.
So Cassius has a question. Or a curious thing with the undead. How worried should die undead like Whittle be?
Whittle's not dead yet, so Orkira hasn't tried to destroy her yet.
Well, what's interesting is in the UA, certainly they were considered undead. In Van Richten's guide, because of the complications of design, I kind of figured right away, I very much like the idea of Dhampir being undead if you wanted them to be, or constructs, but there are so many edge case rulings with spells and certain effects, and also CR ratings, frankly, that are tied into that as well. It just becomes kind of a headache. So they just say that they're humanoid. So Dhampirs are, so technically Will is a Dhampir, but for the game itself, I do register her as undead, but as a different kind of vibe. Because otherwise you're kind of taking the fun out of being a Dhampir. But it's good to let the clerics and paladins know that this isn't this is a half undead, maybe be cool about it or take a moment before you start smiting things. Kind of
it's super important not just for cleric paladin reasons in general, but and not just for Orkira in general, considering her feelings about undead,
but for
very
healing, revivify. Well, not
for
revivify.
healing for revivify and raise dead. Those don't work on undead.
I think revivify will work on a zombie. Actually, I thought.
Nope.
Really?
You cannot be. That's why Orkira hates undead. Is if you make a body undead, you cannot bring them back to life. You essentially need a wish or true resurrection in order to, which is such high level magic that you're essentially petitioning the gods at that point. Anything else, also just healing in general. If you're considered undead, healing does not work on undead.
So here's the weird thing about Revivify is it does work on constructs, and this is a weird case. I remember talking to Mr. Crawford about it, but you touch a creature that has died within the last minute. This is loose interpretation. Once you become a zombie, that is your creature type, and you can in fact die. So your moment of death as a zombie is when you are reduced to 0 hit points. So that creature can be returned to life, quote unquote, with 1 hit point. That is technically how Revivify can function. What's horrifying about it is if someone fingered, and this is where it came up, I believe, as a Twitter thread, is someone asked, can you revivify someone if someone used Finger of Death on them? And the answer is, you can. But
they just come back as a zombie.
Back a zombie. Because they're a zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which for the Enter to Akira is, well, then I haven't brought anybody back.
Yeah, and because I think someone was trying to get around the fact that Revivify specifically doesn't say that it won't work on undead.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they're like, well, then Revivify will work. And it won't because your last creature type for that target was zombie. So you kill a zombie, you can Revivify one. I don't know why you're this isn't manipulative in any way. And the fact that, like, why are you revivifying a zombie with a 3rd level spell slot? Like, there's no advantage to this. It's just letting you know, no, you're just getting what you got.
There is one advantage, but it has 0 to do with being a cleric trying to bring back a creature. Yeah. It is you're a wizard necromancer who is trying to save one of your undead creatures.
Well, higher level undead, yeah.
Yeah, and if you have access to revivify through, dipping into cleric or doing other things, then that's the way. But yeah, so the answer to why is Whittle still okay, because she's technically not really undead. It's kind of, I think the way Akira sees it, she's kind of cursed. But the fact that it's the same thing when Avron showed up as an undead warlock. Like, it's an aesthetic.
Like a deathlock, yeah.
But for her, the important thing is I can heal you and I can bring you back to life if you die. And that to her is the defining line between a complicated and an uncomplicated undead or creature. So as long as Whittle doesn't completely turn into a vampire, we're all good.
I will say, after this long-running campaign that we've had, I will simplify my concepts, because I do weird things like, okay, this character dies every 3 weeks, like, no matter what. Like, like if he comes back, there's a theme with Avron. He becomes undead every 3 weeks. It's happened 3 times now. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Sometimes you need to take your smarty pants off and just have a more simple story. Because everyone else is just like, why does this keep happening? Or they don't even know it's happening. We got a lot of questions.
Okay.
There was someone read a cool article about time. I'm not going to dive into that probably right now. But yes, I do believe like, if you travel back in time, you're just now creating another reality, and what is true for you will continue to be true for you moving forward. You also can't really alter time. You could possibly create another dimension, but like, what happens. This is why I actually like, and I did this with a Norse mythology game called As Guardians of the Multiverse, that my wife Megan was in and they used to watch, is Loki was in there. But they went back in time, but I already had the potential. They were already there. So I already, in the very first episode, I set up the fact that they potentially would be filling the roles of a character that did something terrible, said terrible things to them. And they went back in time and took that character's place and said all the exact same things. And I think that's where time travel can be fun if it changes nothing.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. So that answers kind of a question. How do we feel about Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow? I enjoy Groundhog Day, but you are also filming on the cheap. So you will have one.
I love that your problem with Groundhog Day is technical, is production.
And I hate Ned Ryerson. But I do. Yeah, it's a very smart movie. It's a very funny movie. I think it's hilarious. It's one that I cannot watch again because it repeats so often. And I appreciate, as a production person, the joy of being able to shoot 18 scenes in the same location without new setups. The costs go down. Edge of Tomorrow is...
You mean Live, Die, Repeat?
Yeah, Live. They just couldn't figure out what they were going to call that thing.
No.
I think the acting in there is actually quite good. I think Emily Blunt totally steals the show. I do appreciate the timey-wiminess of it. And I like a character that becomes better. Again, I like that concept of a character who becomes better and better at something suddenly to everyone else. but it is like a nightmare scenario, and I don't want to necessarily watch films like that again. I like watching it the one time, and that's it for me. I do like Tenet, however, and that's not a repeat thing. You really have to be a good writer. What I like is, here's why I like time travel. You have to be a really good writer to not F it up.
Yeah.
So is
I think
a
you also,
mathematical problem that you need to solve narratively.
I think you also, it's unfair of some of these movie shows, all that, to ask my opinion on them, because I know I hate time travel. That's why that's like I said, one of the reasons I'm not watching Loki, because I have this inherent issue with it. And even something as good as Live, Die, Repeat, which I did see and I thought was an excellent movie, despite the fact that I hate time travel, and had issues with. But all of my issues are theoretical issues. Like, and I don't mean that to sound like I'm smarter than screenwriters or I'm smarter than the people who are coming up with the movie. I'm not. I just have my own really hardcore feelings about this. And so I try to just avoid those kind of movies and TV shows, because I know I'm going to have those issues with it.
Yeah.
It's the same reason I don't watch Mozart in the Jungle. I don't feel like hate watching something that other people enjoy.
Yeah, and I agree. Because I will say I don't know that I've ever watched. There are very few time movies I've ever watched where I'm like, yes, that's how time works, because it's not. I'm like, generally speaking, as far as like physics goes, what happens happened. So if you go back in time, you were meant to go back in time, and that's it. And there is no variation of that. So you have to write accordingly. But then, how do you make that interesting is a problem as well. If you do it in D&D, you're taking away free choice. If you are doing time travel correctly, there's a problem there. What I was ecstatic about when I did it with this other show is my players came up with the plan themselves. They decided to be the villain, disguise themselves, and interact with themselves under an illusion. And they came up with that by themselves without me pushing them in that direction. And I couldn't have been happier. It was hilarious, and it was an amazing moment, and it took no direction from me. They figured out a way to do it themselves, and so that was fun.
Yeah.
So,
and real quick, I will agree with Garwar, who says no one truly knows how time works.
That's
100%. No one truly knows how it works. I just have very strong feelings. I do wonder.
We have strong indications, though, in theoretical physics.
We do. But, once again, I'm not a theoretical physicist. I'm just an armchair person who doesn't like time travel. I will say I do often wonder, because we do so much of playing the same adventures and variants over and over and over and over again in the game. Like, are we essentially redoing Groundhog Day every time? When we run Mad Wizard in order to farm stuff,
right?
Are we just
Are we putting
our characters through Groundhog Day with Mad Wizard?
I mean, yeah, I think it's more Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, right? Like, you're like, okay, this didn't work the first time. Let's go again. I think we've come full circle. Idle Champions is a time travel game, because they're called time gates. They're called time gates.
That
so
is true.
You're also revisiting the past. So I don't know. I think you work for a company that's all about time travel.
I don't know if it's all about time travel, but you're right about the time gates.
All right. I feel sorry for everyone.
I don't. You knew what you signed up for when you clicked on the little alert that said, come watch Lauren and Todd talk about things.
Regarding Todd and Evil, I will say that I am mischievous as a person and a friend, especially in close proximity. So that is true. But it doesn't help that Todd looks like...
You are not Averin, or else I would not be friends with you.
No, I don't think I was that cruel unless I was a teenager. So someone said, it doesn't help that Todd looks like Averin. I'll tell you why Todd looks like Averin, because never in my head did he look like me as I was playing him since I was a kid. It changed when we started playing it on a live show, and I didn't want to make the effort in live play, in cosplay. So which is funny, because you...
I was about to say, I don't know why anyone, no one sees the resemblance between Orkira and I. I mean, come on.
Yes, but you do remember the day you cosplayed as Orkira, which you did a good job, but you're also, I'm never doing this again.
I said I'm never doing it again without a lot more help. because we had to do it very last minute. And I do remember when I was picking my character, and you're like, we might have to cosplay as these characters once. I'm like, I understand, and it will suck when that happens, but I can't pick my character that I'm going to play for who knows how long in this campaign based on what I can get away with cosplaying. I have to pick the character that I want to play as, and like the day I'm going to be in gold makeup with the accoutrement will be the day, and I'll just deal with it, and I still have no regrets. But the next time will be better.
I have a lot of issues with how Avon dresses. I like a lot of the clothes in Game of Thrones I feel would be appropriate, but I've never found like the cosplay outfit I would do. And I remember we were at the descent into Avernus, and I had them just do like, the Charlize Theron, like just black makeup across my eyes in a bar. And I hated it because I couldn't see my eyebrows. And I can't.
You and I had the same problem because they did the gold and they covered up my eyebrows with the gold. And the two of us are like, I can't look at you. What's going on?
Exactly. I don't know that I can actually read people's emotions or understand even their faces without eyebrows, which I learned very quick. And I knew this once before because I had a friend do, they were doing a makeup test in theater for hair, and they put cadaver wax on my eyebrows because they couldn't find a way to thin them with makeup. So they put wax on top of my eyebrows, and it fundamentally changed how I see my face. And it weirded me out. It was pretty funny because they're like, are you upset because you have a wig on and the dress and everything, you got makeup on? I'm like, no, it's my eyebrows. I can't stand it. Like, if you left the eyebrows open, okay.
Yeah.
But
I know, like, I totally understand that. Like, how much of a facial expression humans produce with eyebrows is super important. I mean, I think that's why a lot of the humanoid creatures in D&D still manage to have like ridges or something there, even though it doesn't make any sense. Like Dragonborn have these weird ridges right there.
I would say Dragonborn have the most eyebrowy eyebrows.
Right?
Like you're all eyebrow. Like the horns start here.
Yeah. So. Pretty much. Yeah. We are all Griff. We are all judgy eyebrows.
We got another question. Any chance Whittle will appear in Idle Champions to complete? Who knows?
That'd be awesome, though. I mean,
it'd be interesting. Isn't losing a familiar painful? Not in the game. I gotta tell you, like, even knowing that my familiar can just be like popped into existence again, or like even the Drake Warden UA. I would still be upset. Like, no one wants to see anything suffer or die, and I'm certainly, you could say the familiar doesn't feel pain, but like, it's just kind of weird. Like, how are you not associating emotional attachment because this is a pet?
So I do that in my game, and I wasn't going to with my wizard who's got a familiar, because you're right. There's nothing in the rules that talk about there being any issues. Like, it's actually really easy to just resummon your familiar, which I think is on purpose. It's the mechanics of a familiar are supposed to be, the pop in, pop out kind of thing. That's how I was kind of viewing Bucks, the owl familiar that my wizard has, until they started doing things like telepathic bonding with all of their animal familiars and giving voice to these creatures. And then it became important. And so we actually do a homebrew thing in my campaign where if Bucks dies, my wizard can just cast Find Familiar and get another familiar. But there's a chance that it won't be the same spirit. It won't be the same creature. And so there's basically a skill challenge that he has to do that he can get help on in order to get that specific creature back. Otherwise, he just gets a new celestial. And so far, I haven't made it incredibly difficult, but just the fact that there is that chance that you won't get the same exact creature back has given enough weight to that for him to be cautious with where he sends Bucks. Now, that's not for every game. I think if your wizard is being more, as the rules go with familiars, then you don't necessarily want to give weight to that, because that's a mechanics thing that can be advantageous of like, hey, I'm going to send the owl on in to give the help action to the fighter for this one attack that's super important.
Right.
And yeah, that probably means the owl's going to get smote.
Yeah.
Then I'll take the time and resummon and it'll be okay. But yeah, in the game, there's not a mechanics for it, but it can be very interesting and I think it's good role play to give that kind of interaction to, but then you have to, as a DM, be careful. Things like fireballs.
I mean, you know, I love that stuff. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, because I think there should be emotional weight to familiars, and I think that's a good solution. But like recently with the Simulacrum, like I made this very different character. That was a Simulacrum, and that concept of like what defines something that matters, like anything, like the familiars have intelligence. Just because they don't quote unquote have a soul canonically in D&D, like what is the worth of something? And this is something that I very much kind of enjoy, is that question. Kind of like I like identity metaphysics quite a bit, and that kind of delves into that stuff. So
yeah. Do they not have a soul, or is it just because what it talks about is that you summon the spirit of a celestial, fey, fiend, or undead? Or not undead.
So I guess arguably you could say that they do, yeah. But like when in cases of like a Simulacrum, like what is the worth of Simulacrum? And I would still argue that, like, listen, your actions define what you are.
Yeah.
And I would say a Simulacrum does have their own existence, and D&D does play in the adventures with what a Simulacrum is or is not.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil too much. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is an adventure I like that came out last year that I borrowed some interesting stuff from. And I love Blade Runner and all that stuff, and they deal with identity metaphysics as well.
Yeah.
So, we did have a question like, how do I use a code? All right, can we safely show how to use a code?
Yeah, actually, I can, because I haven't. Yeah. So if you come up here to your chests, you can then unlock a locked chest. And here I will do what a lot of us do in chat. So if you put in code into the chat, you can then get the code to come up in chat, or you can just pull it from the screen, and then you can actually just copy. And since I'm on the PC, I can do copy paste, and it'll automatically put it in there.
Yeah.
You can also type it on in. Some of our codes are longer. If you copy paste a 16 character code, it'll automatically make the chest big enough to use. If not, if you're typing it in, you can actually just change the size, and it'll give you the 16 or the 12 characters. Then you say unlock, and Electrum chest.
Awesome.
So yeah. And I will add that to my collection of chests that I've got going on over there, and we'll come back to the game. So that's how you unlock a chest in Idle Champions. And so go forth, come to our Discord or our Reddit, where we have a lot of people who are very good about taking chest codes that they find in the variety of places that you can find chest codes. So like live streams, some podcasts that we partner with, some other shows that we partner with, and they'll post them there. And I'll bring this back around to our original topic, which was kind of, this is part of the original topic of getting inspiration for your D&D game through Idle Champions. I do think one of the ways that you can is through finding out about some of these other shows, because we link out not just to CNE shows, but we'll send you to like the Gax Pack show that's happening on Saturday, or to D4 on Sunday, or to Rivals of Waterdeep, or some other shows that have characters in the game that could inspire you as a player to be like, oh, I want to play this kind of character. Or as a DM, watching some of these shows and getting ideas for DMing styles or things you want to do in game. So if you come to our Discord, you can find the whole selection. There's an entire channel that is devoted to combinations, so that you can keep up on everything, because not everyone can watch everything, because there's a lot. But maybe you'll see something in there and be like, oh, I wonder what this Griddle Champions show is. Maybe I should check that out on Fridays. And you should, because pancakes.
A question about the Prism Familiar for Lambert House charity. That will last from the moment it launches for 2 weeks. So those proceeds will go to Lambert House, which is a very good charity that you should donate to.
I'm putting the link to the blog in chat for Prism. It's a different date. So it's basically, like Todd said, the 2 weeks. All the net proceeds go to charity. Because Prism came out later on the PlayStation, it's running a little longer on PlayStation. So it depends on what your platform was.
We got another question about Selese's Thunder Smite ability. If there's an issue there, if someone's having an issue with one of the champions' abilities or something like that, where's a good place to talk about that?
Discord is a great place to find out, especially if you want to know more. If you're unsure, hey, am I encountering an issue? Or Celise is an awesome champion, but it can be complicated. So if you're unsure about what's going on with a certain champion or how to create formations, definitely come to our Discord. If you encounter a bug or an issue, the best thing to do is use the support tab in your game. As it says, support will open up a new browser and you'll be able to submit a support ticket with your game information, give us some details about what's going on, and we'll look into that. If you can't get into the game, you can also just go to the support website, and there's also an email address that you can contact, and all of that is also listed in the Discord. But the best way in-game, if you think you've encountered a bug or issue with your game, click on that support, come tell us, we'll help you out.
That's right. And Kessis also asked, like, Lauren watches would be a great stream, but copyright issues. You're right. We can't.
Yeah.
Then we've got.
I mean, you're also describing my life. That Lauren watches, like, that's what I do all day.
And she watches live streams. She does watch.
Yeah.
What domain is Orkira? Is she a homebrew cleric? The answer is yes.
She is the cleric of the Phoenix. That is a homebrew subclass that I created. Is she actually listed? Where does it list? It lists it somewhere that she is her domain. But she is a cleric. But she is using a homebrew domain, which is all fire and healing. You can find it on D&D Beyond for free. It's posted there under my name, and you can use it if you would like.
I'm very tempted to homebrew one just for Avern as well, because there's only a few abilities I actually care about with that character, really. And a lot of them are in IO champions, and this kind of comes full circle. Like, I like the idea of him shrinking people. I think it's hilarious. I love Mirror Image. I love the spell Mislead. And I really don't care about anything else. Like, I like Polymorph too, but I would totally play a fighter if I could get access to like just 3 spells. That's all I would ever do. And half-casters don't do it. I almost wish there was like a subclass, and certainly you could design a subclass, and you would have to accommodate for abilities that you find core to that character's being. And I think you did a really great job with the Order of the Phoenix for a cleric domain. I thought that was amazing.
Well, I had a lot of help from a lot of good people that are listed in the subclass. I paid a couple people to do some editing because I had an idea for the subclass, and I was willing to sacrifice a little bit of this is what Orkira would want versus a subclass that would be more palatable to, say, the wider public, which is why I wouldn't put it out on DM's Guild or something, because it's a very specific subclass. But I did want it to be balanced as much as possible. I did want it to work in the context of D&D and not be, a kind of a janky mess. So I highly recommend, if you can, pay an editor to go through your stuff if you're going to publish it, especially if you're going to publish it for pay. As I said, the Order of the Phoenix is available for free on DM's Guild. But yeah, I was very fortunate to have a lot of people play test it and try it out. And even now, like, having played it for a couple of months, there are things in it that just because of the way I play or the way that our games work, I actually never use. I still think they're really good core parts of the subclass, and when they do work, it's great. But on a regular basis, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I could do that because it never happens. Orkira herself is enough of a healer support character. She actually doesn't do a lot of damage, and when she does, it's often not fire because she can't sculpt. So unlike Whittle, who can sculpt when she casts Fireball, yeah. And the Order of the Phoenix has a very specific. It's actually in the game. When Orkira does fire damage, she can give a little heal to somebody basically for free, and she can do that a whole bunch of times.
But clerics have a lot of AOE.
I have a lot of AOE, and for balance reasons, in the subclass, it's specific that I have to use a leveled spell in order to do it, or else it gets a little overpowered to just be like,
So it's Burning Hands.
it's any fire spell. So I have tons of fire spells, but Burning Hands is an AOE. All of them are all AOE, so I gotta be really careful about it.
You really need Scorching Ray.
Does she have Scorching Ray? She has access to Scorching Ray.
Yeah, because
But
then
yeah,
you
so
can target 3 things. But anyway, sorry.
yeah, but as I said, lately a lot of what she's been doing is it's a small enough heal that it doesn't make sense to burn an action to set fire to something to heal other people. It actually works a lot better in the game in Idle Champions than it does in the TTRPG.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good to know. Well, I believe that's our show, everybody. Thank you.
That's it. We're out of questions already.
We got one more. Why is the in-game chat broken? That often, yep, that's a customer service issue. Yeah.
If the chat is broken, if you go into it and you don't see it actually popping up, give it a few minutes and try it again or restart your game. We have been trying to fix that so that it'll automatically activate again. So actually shut down your game and restart it, and that will often kick the chat back into gear.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching this Idle Insights and talking about movies and inspiration from Idle Champions, the game. We learned a lot about why Lauren doesn't like time and why I do, and we will continue to disagree about this topic. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Lauren Irvin, for being on the show as well. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.